Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Namaskar. Myself, Professor Dr. Preeti Mayani from Gujarat University, HRDC Department. I am welcoming you all in the behalf of HRDC Gujarat University in the first online Guru Dakshata program. Friends, we are running this online program very smoothly, and I'm sure that you are definitely enjoying this teaching learning process. So we have today another eminent personality with all of us, Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt. So I'm welcoming you, Mamta ji, and all the participants of this Guru Dakshata program. I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt among all of us. Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt is a very good friend and resource person of Gujarat University, HRDC. She is having more than 20 years of academic experience, and at present she is serving as associate professor in quantitative techniques and research methods area at BK School of Business Management, Gujarat University. Prior to joining here, she was associated with National Institute of Cooperative Management, Gandhinagar, as assistant professor. She has completed her PhD in banking management, and she has published papers in several major international and national research journals. Her research papers have also been presented in several international and national conferences as well. Few research papers have received Best Research Paper awards. Her publication includes 130 plus published research papers and 23 books. She has also attended AICTE sponsored FDP organized by NITIE Mumbai and capacity building program organized by ICSSR at Udaipur and international research workshop on data analytic organized by Geddu College of Business Studies, Royal University of Bhutan. Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt established R&D cell at Institute and conducted many programs under R&D cell with various departments of Gujarat University. She has special expertise in data analysis and statistical methods. She has been actively involved in teaching, training, and research for over 20 years. Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt has delivered expert sessions on research methods and SPSS and got engaged in various academic in 28 different universities, institutions, namely National Institution of Fashion Technology, Gandhinagar, ACG, Gujarat National Law University, and many precious universities across the India. She is the coordinator of postgraduate diploma in international business and postgraduate diploma in research methodology for management academy of BKSBM, Gujarat University. She was also the coordinator for integrated MOU programs, namely postgraduate program in management, computer application and computer science. Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt has been invited by 28 different universities for various academic, professional achievements and progress. During the course of her academic journey, she has been awarded for Best Research Paper Award 17 times She was selected for Jewel of India Award by Economic Growth Society of India. She is the recipient of National Education Award for the Best Professor in Operation Management and Education Leadership Award for Divang Mehta National Education and Teaching Excellence Award by Higher Education Forum Gujarat chapter. So friends, let's put our hands together to welcome Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt जी. मुझे पूरा यकीन है कि ममता ब्रह्मभट्ट जी के साथ हमारा ये सेशन बहुत अच्छा रहेगा और हमारी ये टीचिंग लर्निंग और हमारे जो अनुभव में हमें जो बढ़ावा चाहिए वो उनके साथ इस सेशन में हमें 100% मिलेगा. So friends, on behalf of HRDC Gujarat University, I would like to welcome again Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt ji and all the participants of Guru Dakshata program.
Good morning, participant. I, Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt, once again welcome you all for my second session on hypothesis testing. From bottom of my heart, I thank UGC Human Resource Development Center of Gujarat University for giving me this wonderful opportunity second time. I also thank Professor Dr. C.G. Brahmbhatt and Professor Dr. Preeti Miani for this opportunity. Before I start my session, let us revise what we have done previously. In my last session, we have completed basics of research and basics of statistics. Now, in the previous section, we have covered what is hypothesis, what is null hypothesis, what is alternating hypothesis, types of statistical technique, one-tailed test, two-tailed test, type 1 error, type 2 error. We have also covered the basics of statistics like what is population parameter, what is sample statistics, what is data, what is variable, types of data, types of variable. So in the previous session, all necessary things required for testing the hypothesis that is covered. In today's session, I will be starting with the various methods of hypothesis testing. So before I start my session, let me share the screen with you and allow a few seconds for that, not minutes. Okay. I hope this screen is visible to you all. And second question, as usual, I am audible to you all. So I, Dr. Mamta Brahmbhatt, once again welcome you all to Guru Dakshata Faculty Induction Program in my second session. As I told earlier also, in second session, I am going to talk about hypothesis techniques, various methods of hypothesis. This will be the theoretical class. In the second portion of this session, we will discuss SPSS software in detail. Okay. After completing this session, participant will be able to understand what is univariate statistics, what is bivariate techniques, and what is multivariate techniques. Now, let us start with the main session, univariate statistics. When I'm saying univariate statistics, here hypothesis testing it is done only for one variable. Clear? And that's why the name it is univariate statistical technique. So in the univariate statistic, you have one variable. If you want to check the one variable hypothesis, then we can take the help of univariate statistical technique. For example, if you want to compare the income group or income of one group, so for that, you need to assume that level. What will be the income level? Clear? So this, when you want to do the hypothesis testing for one variable, and if you want to do one sample t-test, for that the measurement scale will be the scale question. Yeah. So if you want to perform this test, then the question will be in metric nature. Categorical question, it is not required. It is not useful if you want to do this kind of a statistical analysis. So if you want to compare or if you want to calculate or check the differences in the income of XYZ group, say for an example, the participant, you all participant, and I want to check that what is the income level of this group. So for that, I need to assume one value. I am assuming that the income level of this participant, it is 50,000 per month. Yes. So now this 50,000, it is assumed value. This assumed value comes from researcher. Researcher assume on the basis of literature review, on the basis of some observation. Yeah. When I'm saying that if I want to measure the body fat index of female, so then from the literature, I know that the body fat index in female above 18 age, it is 23%. So this I have not calculated. I got this value from the literature. I'm not dietitian. I cannot quote this value, but by conducting the literature review, I got this 23%. Now this 23%, it is the assumed value which researcher is getting from literature review. And now you are trying to compare this value with your calculated value. So your calculated value comes from your sample data. So when you are collecting the information, you will collect the sample information and then you calculate that their value and you will compare this calculated value with the assumed value. Sometimes it is also from the observation. So for an example, our university branch, SBA branch, every week they are writing the service quality index. So if you visit that branch, then every week they are writing on a whiteboard that previous week, what is the service quality index of this branch. So if you are doing the measurement of service quality of SPI, then that service quality index written on the whiteboard of that branch, you can take it as it is as your assumed value. So this value you got from the observation. So in the one sample t-test, which is a univariate statistical analysis, you are comparing your calculated value with the assumed value. So assumed value comes from the literature or it may be from the observation, you can quote the value. Moving on further, you have bivariate statistical analysis. Now, as the name suggests, in bivariate statistical analysis, you are going to make the hypothesis testing between two variables. So here, two variables are involved in analysis. Now, what are the measurement scale required when you want to perform the bivariate statistical technique? So first, if your measurement scale, it is interval or ratio, that is a scale question. That is a metric question, not a categorical question. Yes. And if you want to compare the differences between the two groups, that time you can go for independent sample t-test. Now, take the example that if you want to compare the income levels of male and female, so that time you can go for independent sample t-test. Now here the income that you are going to measure in the form of scale question. Yeah. If income it is a categorical, you cannot perform this test. Now, if you want to compare the differences among more than two categories, that time you can go for one way ANOVA. Yeah. Now, if you want to compare the income of assistant professor, associate professor, or professor, and the dean, so then I have four categories. I am going to check the differences among these four categories with the help of one-way ANOVA. At the same time, my variable, which is income, I am going to measure on scale question. So measurement scale required for independent sample t-test and for ANOVA, my test variable should be metric. It should be scale question. Okay, moving on further. Now, if your question, it is ordinal, your data measurement scale, it is ordinal, and if you want to perform this test, then the previous tests are not for you. Yeah. So ordinal question like income you have asked in ordinal form, like income between 10,000 to 20,000, 20,000 to 30,000, 30,000 to 40,000. If this way you are measuring the income of the respondent, and now if you are trying to identify the differences between the two independent groups like male and female, then you can perform Mann-Whitney's U-test or Wilcoxon t-test. Similarly, if differences you want to check among more than two categories, like again, professor, assistant professor, associate professor. So ANOVA, it is not helpful here because your question income, you have asked in the form of ordinal question. So that time, instead of performing a ANOVA, you can go for Kruskal-Wallis test. Okay. Now, if your measurement scale, it is nominal. Yeah. If you have a nominal question and if you want to check the differences between two independent groups or more than two independent groups, you can go for chi-square. So chi-square test, it is useful when you have a categorical question and that is to be specific nominal data measurement scale. Now, moving further, we have another statistical technique, that is the measures of association. Now, measures of association techniques that refers to a number of bivariate statistical analysis, which is used to measure the strength of a relationship between the two variables. When I am saying a strength, that means what is the bonding between these two variables, and accordingly you can calculate the measures of association. Now, measures of association, the relationship can be identified using correlation analysis and bivariate regression analysis. Now, how two variables they are correlated with each other can be tested using correlation analysis. But if you have one dependent and one independent variable, if you want to predict the variable, which is one variable, it is known. And on the basis of the known variable, if you're trying to predict the another variable, then you can use the bivariate regression analysis. Moving further, so if performing the correlation and regression analysis, my data measurement scale must be interval or ratio. I cannot use the correlation and bivariate regression if I have ordinal data, or if I have a nominal. For that, the different statistical treatment is available, which I will be talking soon. Okay. See, ordinal. If your data measurement scale, it is ordinal, you can go for chi-square, or you can check the rank correlation. So here also, when my data measurement scale, it is ratio, I am calculating correlation. Here also I am calculating correlation. But when my data measurement scale, it is interval or ratio, I am checking the correlation through Pearson's correlation test. And when my data measurement scale, it is ordinal, I am checking the correlation using Spearman's rank correlation test. I hope this difference is clear to you. Okay. If your data measurement scale, it is nominal, you can use chi-square. Among the chi-square, these sub-options are available, like phi coefficient or contingency coefficient can be used if you have a nominal data characteristics within your research. Okay. Now, what is multivariate statistical analysis? Multivariate statistical analysis allows the researcher to do investigation of more than two variables simultaneously. Clear? So when it is a univariate technique, only single variable it is permitted. When it is a bivariate statistical analysis, two variables are possible. When it is a multiple variable statistical analysis, that time more than two variables can be analyzed simultaneously. Okay. Now moving further, when you want to perform a multivariate statistical analysis in your research, you need to ask this question. Are some of the variables dependent on others? So if you have a dependent questions, if the answer it is yes, then you can go for dependence techniques of hypothesis testing. But if you are not having any dependent variable in your research, then in that case, you can go for interdependence method. So as far as multivariate analysis is concerned, you have both dependent method and interdependence method. Let us see how they are different from each other. Now, what is dependence method? It is a category of multivariate statistical technique wherein dependent method explain or predict the dependent variable on the basis of two or more independent variable. So whenever I'm saying that the dependence method, my objective is to explain or predict the variable. I want to estimate or predict the variable which is unknown on the basis of known variable with me. Okay. Now, let us start with the dependence method. And for dependent method, you have to ask this question to yourself as a researcher. How many variables are dependent? One variable dependent, two variable dependent. So what are the variables are included in your research analysis? Accordingly, your statistical treatment will differ. Say for an example, if you have one dependent variable and that one dependent variable, it is metric. When I'm saying a metric, that means it is a scale, it is ratio, it is interval, it is not categorical. Clear? So when you have a one dependent variable and that dependent variable, it is a metric variable, then you can go for multiple regression analysis. Okay, let us take an example. Say for an example, if you want to predict the grade of the student. Clear? So grade of the student, performance of the student in the exam, it is a dependent variable. And this dependent variable you are measuring in terms of scale question. So maybe the marks of the student, GPA, that is also a scale question. So my one dependent variable, it is metric variable, that is the marks of the student in the exam. Grade, performance, average of the student, that is also a scale question. Now, this dependent variable, it is depending on many other independent variables like attendance of the students in the class, number of hours studied by that student, IQ level of that student, yeah, how many times the assignment are submitted by the student. So these are the series of independent variables. With these independent variables, you are trying to predict the variable which is the performance of the students in the exam. So that time when your dependent variable, it is metric, and all independent variable, it is metric, that time you can go for multiple regression analysis. Yeah. But if you have only one independent variable and one dependent variable, that time we are doing simple regression analysis, which I have already talked in the previous class. Yeah. So that is bivariate regression analysis. So you have one dependent and one independent, only two variables. So that time you can go for simple regression analysis. But when you have a one dependent and many independent variable, it is a case of multivariate analysis. Yes, so that time you can go for multiple regression analysis. Now this variable which you are trying to measure, that dependent variable, it is not metric, it is a categorical, nominal and ordinal. So that time, instead of doing the multiple regression analysis, researcher can do multiple discriminant analysis. Yes, so multiple discriminant analysis and multiple regression analysis, the difference between the two, it is based on the measurement scale. If your dependent variable, if it is metric, then go for multiple regression. If your dependent variable, it is nominal and categorical, that time you go for multiple discriminant analysis. Okay. Now, how many variables are dependent? We have talked when one variable it is dependent, what kind of a technique you can go for. Now, if you have many variables which are dependent in your research, that time, what would be the data measurement techniques you can apply to your research? So you have many dependent variables, and these many dependent variables, they are metric. Metric means the scale questions. Yes. So if you have a scale, ratio, or interval, anything will do. So if you have many dependent variables, and these dependent variables, they are scale questions or metric questions. So that time you can go for multivariate analysis of variance. What is that? So MANOVA, it compares two or more continuous response variable. Now, this is something difficult. I need to take the example. Say, for example, you have a question like you have independent variable, and in independent variable, you are asking the levels of education. Yeah. And levels of education, you are measuring with the categorical question like PG, UG, PG, PhD. Yeah. So you have one independent variable, that is the levels of education. Yeah. These levels of education, it is a categorical question. Now you have two more dependent variables. I told you that when you have a two dependent variable, what can be done? So what that two variable could be? The marks of the student, that is a ratio question, and income of that. Clear? So this, with these two ratio questions and individual one independent question like their graduation, PG, PhD. Now you have one independent question with three categories, and you have two dependent questions, and they both are metric. So that time you can go for one-way MANOVA. Are you getting me? That time you can go for one-way MANOVA. You can do two-way MANOVA also. So for that, you can have one more question to be added from your side. So you want to perform the one-way MANOVA. In that case, you have to have one independent variable which is categorical in nature and two dependent variables. And that two dependent variable must be metric questions. Okay. Now, when you want to do these questions, or when you want to go for a conjoint analysis, questions format, it is changing. The data measurement scale, it is different. If you have many dependent variable, but these dependent variable, they are not metric, they are not scale question, they are non-metric. They are categorical questions, they are ordinal questions, clear? Or nominal ordinal questions. So that time you can go for conjoint analysis. Now, what is conjoint analysis? The conjoint analysis, it is widely used in marketing research and product development. The objective of conducting the conjoint analysis is to find out the attributes of the product that are most preferred by the various customers. Yeah. So that's why the conjoint analysis, it is highly preferred in marketing research and product development. So when companies, they are in the developing the product, that time they are asking about the attributes, perception from the consumers. Yes. So when you're having more than two dependent variable, if this two dependent variable, it is the metric. So you can go for multivariate analysis of variance. And if these dependent questions are nominal or ordinal, categorical, that time you can go for conjoint analysis. Okay. Now, interdependence method. Interdependent method is a category of the multivariate statistical technique wherein you are trying to identify or set the relationship between the variable and you are trying to make a group out of that. Yeah. So interdependence variable methods, I'm not trying to predict anything. Clear? My objective is not to estimate. Okay. Let us move further. Now, if you want to perform the interdependence method, again ask this question. All your questions are metric. If all questions are metric question, matrix means the scale question. Categorical and ordinal nominal question are not allowed when you are doing these three techniques. So if all the variables are metric scale question, then three methods of multivariate analysis you can do it, and that is factor analysis, cluster analysis, and metric multidimensional scaling. Now, what is factor analysis? Factor analysis is a technique of data reduction. It is a techniques of data summarization. When you have a huge set of items, statements, variables, and this many statements, you are trying to group them on the basis of similarity, then you can go for factor analysis. Yeah. So you know the very famous model of Parshuraman, that's a called model, or a retail service quality scale. That is also one more model in the marketing. There are 22 statements. 22 statements are grouped on 5 parameters or 5 factors like tangibility, or what is that, responsiveness, empathy, reliability, convenience. Yeah. So objective of factor analysis is to reduce your items, variable. So when you are having, say for example, if you have 30 or 40 statements, this 40 statement you are trying to reduce. And what are the method? Through factor analysis, this 40 statement, the similar statement will load on a one particular factor. So once the factor analysis it is conducted through the software, all the statements which are very similar, they will become a part of a one or second or another factors. So using this technique, you can get the various factors, and through this way, you are trying to reduce your items, statements, or variables. Okay. Now this cluster analysis. Cluster analysis, it is the multivariate technique wherein your data measurement scale, it is metric, and researcher will, when researcher is like you want to do grouping of the objects or grouping of the individual or grouping of the cases on the basis of relative on the basis of similarity. Clear? So then you are trying to prepare the cluster of similar individual, cluster of similar object, cluster of similar cases. So cluster analysis, it is useful for preparing the clusters. Yeah. And this is a technique of grouping the individual, cases, or your respondent on the basis of their relative similarity. Okay. Now the last technique available in the multivariate technique, it is a multidimensional scaling. Multidimensional scaling, it is a technique which is used to measure and present the perception and preferences of respondent. So this technique is also highly used in marketing research. Yeah. So in today's session, I have covered various techniques with the help of measurement scale. If you are aware, if you are knowing exactly what is your measurement scale, you can perform the statistical treatment accordingly. Yeah. So before performing any statistical technique, whether it is a univariate, bivariate or multivariate, you must know your data measurement scale, because your techniques, it is highly dependent on the data measurement scale. If you have two questions which are categorical in nature, and that time if you are finding the association between the two, then the probable and the appropriate method, it is a chi-square. But when you have two questions and both the questions are scale question, you are trying to identify the relation between the two variables, then the appropriate method, it is correlation. Yeah. So your data measurement scale, it is categorical. That's why I'm using chi-square. My data measurement scale, it is non-categorical. It is a metric data. It is a scale data. That's why I'm going for correlation. Yeah. So your data measurement scale, it is most important thing before deciding your statistical technique. Many students, many research scholars, they approach me and they are saying that, madam, I have collected data. My data, it is collected, questionnaire, it is prepared, everything it is done. Now just help me in performing this many statistical technique, because this techniques I have already written in my proposal. So this technique I have to perform. It is not possible. After collecting the data, after preparing your questionnaire, it is not possible that you can get the technique which you have written in your proposal. So there is a link between your data measurement scales and your statistical technique. Whatever the method you want to apply for your statistical technique, before applying that method, you need to check what are the data measurement scale required for performing this particular techniques. Check that. Yeah. After checking that, yes, if I want to do a factor analysis, I have to have all statement on a Likert scale. Yeah. So this is called the requirement data or required data. On the basis of required data, you can perform the factor analysis. If you have all ordinal questions and if you want me to perform that factor analysis, even being a statistician or researcher, I'll not be able to perform. So that time you should not say that, madam, you are a researcher, you are not knowing how to perform factor analysis. You can't perform. Yes, I cannot perform factor analysis. Why? Because performing the factor analysis, I required all the statements, all the variables, all the items must be scaled. Yeah. So anyone, before preparing your questionnaire, you just decide what statistical technique you want to apply to your data. Clear? And after deciding that, do the reverse engineering. I want to apply this technique, so then search what is a data measurement scale required for performing this particular technique. Yes, these are the data measurement scale required. Accordingly, you prepare a questionnaire. Yeah. So this is a reverse method you have to follow. I have seen that researcher, they prepare the questionnaire first and then they go for a data analysis technique. So that time it is very difficult that whatever they decide techniques you are planning to apply, you cannot apply. Yeah. So whenever you want to do hypothesis testing in your research, decide these are the techniques I want to do. If I want to apply this technique, what are the measurement scale required for this? If these are the measurement scale, I will use this question in my questionnaire. Yeah. So this reverse engineering, and I'm saying a backward thing, a backward research process is required when you want to do this kind of a statistical technique in your research. I hope this techniques discussed by me, it is useful to you and you have understood this method. If you have any query related to this method, you can mail me. And my ID is mamtabrahmbhat23@gmail.com. mamtabrahmbhat23@gmail.com. So any query, doubt relating to this technique, you can always mail me. I will reply within a day. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Thank you so much. Good day.